Matthew has a fantastic sense of what's needed because he can read the game and read the play. And in the game that you're talking about, Kulikov, I think, was suspended for that, and possibly both Forsling and we were down 3 defensemen. So what we needed was a real smart game from our offensive guys, right? Those are the guys that you need to recognize that we're a little short-staffed that night. And that's what he does, right? Big games. He seems, and this is his whole career, not just even with Florida, he seems to be able to elevate to understand what's needed.
Hey, Coach. We've talked so much about just your guys' ability to limit shots on goal and be able to suppress the opponents. Second period yesterday, you guys had, I think it was a 14-minute stretch without allowing a shot on goal. You had it a few times in Boston. What's impressing you most about the team still being able to do that and potentially elevate it, especially as the rounds get deeper and you're facing the top-tier talent as you guys keep going?
I think both teams are good defensively. There wasn't a lot of great offense, and if you're looking at 8 chances based on the 2 breakaways they got, they may have had the edge because it's a grinder both ways. From the bench level, it doesn't feel that the game was shut down at any point. And there were a couple of stretches, I think, in the Tampa series and in the Boston series that I thought we felt, from the bench, it felt like we had the game locked down, that they weren't going to get much in a block of time, right? They're too good at teams for you to think, okay, we're gonna win this game. I didn't feel that last night because of the speed of it. So even if the puck doesn't get to the net, I think you guys, both teams had 19 missed net. That's not just, a missed shot. That's just enough of a lane being taken away from the shooter that you're missing the net. So we had a block of time last night where they didn't get one on goal. That doesn't mean they weren't very dangerous in that block of time. And the style of this series, with the speed going up and down the ice, I don't think they're ever going to get real comfortable that you've got, you're in control, certainly in the middle of part of the ice. I mean, even with offensive zone time that we had, there was a break at the end of it, and boom, they're going on a breakaway. So maybe that's just the coach. He needs to do more breathing exercises on the bench, but it didn't feel like we had the game shut down in any way.
Paul, you mentioned last round just how difficult the fourth line decisions were for you to make, especially because maybe Lomberg especially did nothing wrong to get out of the lineup. Right. How did he handle it behind the scenes? I understand all these guys are pros, but did you have to meet with them and try to keep them patient?
Not so much necessarily meet with him specifically over the other players, but we met with all of them individually. That was a tough one. Ryan got sick, and he came out of the lineup, and both Steve Lorenz and Kyle Okposo ended up coming in. They were just really good. They had scored 2 goals in a game, that line, and won us a game, so now they can't come out. They go back into the Boston series, and I thought they were good the first game, but they were better. That was as good a game as I've seen Ryan play, right? But intelligent, hard, but in control, very quick. So credit to them. I don't think that you coached them through it. I don't think I coached them through it and made it better. Ryan's been here a long time. He's part of the fabric, so it was possibly more personal in some ways for him, especially to be missing out right when you can finish the Tampa series. But he got back in and got to be a part of it. I think the players that we brought in have earned the right when they get in the lineup that at the very least both Cousins and Lomberg could say, I understand. Maybe it doesn't feel good, but I understand why they're in.
Coach, after the game, Bob obviously had a lot of big moments, but what he wanted to talk about was how the team played after Bennett's goal there to make it 3-0, and you guys still had a couple block shots, a couple big hits. Just how much do you like that as a coach, and how important is it for this team, no matter what, to never kind of stop playing your game, even when it might already be in the bag?
Oh, especially there were a couple, and then Ryan Lomberg took a heavy block there that he doesn't need to take. What I like is that they celebrate each other, the good things, and it's not just the top end scorers. It's certainly the guys who don't get necessarily the ice time that the other players do, but they do. They celebrate it on the bench, the hard things, and the fact that they recognize it is important.
Left side, second row, David. Coach, during the regular season, you guys were one of the best road teams. 3 in Boston, 1 here in New York. Just these aren't easy environments to play with in the regular season, let alone the playoffs. How have you guys kind of been able to thrive in that situation away from home when you don't always have the matchups and stuff like that?
I don't think our game is based on us feeling good. That's the best way I could describe it to you. I try not to take this out for dinner, but like things kind of drastically changed in the NHL when the third lines changed. So there's probably only a handful of teams in the NHL that have checking lines anymore. Interesting enough, Carolina's got a really good checking line in the Stahl line, and there's a big difference between their home and road record. I don't think this is true of Winnipeg, but the Lowry line is a dominant checking line. You go back when they used to say, well, it was such a big deal, home and road was a major deal. That's the way teams were built. They had, and it's usually 3 veteran guys, and you could get away with clutching and grabbing. So when you were at home, you got your checking line out against their number 1 line, you could shut them down. And that's why I think there was such a disparity. The third line is no longer built that way. The salary caps, the youth of these players coming in, when they took out the obstruction, was a major change in our game. And then you see almost all the checking line disappears. So that home advantage that you used to have with it, I think, is gone. Right? You're going to put, especially when you look at the Rangers and the Panthers, they're going to put 12 really good forwards out on the ice, and they can all score and they can all check. So I haven't felt that. I think the game's changed. I think road's not nearly as difficult a place to play as it used to be because you don't have that dominant checking line. You got to try to work your guys away from.
Take a few more for Coach front right.
Over the course of the regular season, you talked about instances where Evan Rodriguez has stepped up and being a leader at some points. I mean, for him, what makes it so easy for him to come into a room as established as yours and become a leader and be a part of it so quickly?
Yeah, I think it was Anton Lundell that said that last year. So we kind of try to protect our culture and ask players, what's the best part about playing for the Panthers? And Lundell made a comment that how accepting all the players are in the room. It's like, and the new guys that came in even last year said it feels like I've played here 10 years with these guys. So that's the players and the leadership and the culture that they have and they've built. To Evan's credit, he got moved around a lot this year. So he came in and they were a very good line. He played with Barkov for a big chunk of the year. And then we just had people kind of injuries come in and out. And what happened was he went over and played with Luosterainen and Lundell. And he played his best hockey. And that's almost the turn for Lundell in his year as well. He didn't put a lot of points up early in the year. And he's kind of struggling, I think, a little bit. But when he went there was some speed. To that line, so they kind of find their place. I can still move him around, which is a nice asset to have, but he's found his place.
We'll do 3 more front left.
Hi, Coach. Just the fans back home, curious what you guys do on an off day, especially being here in New York City. Do you go out, restaurants, or what do you do during this time?
No, you know what? I think the dining out portion of the season is in the regular season. So our routine is we almost have a split group. We only skate now on game days. We don't do anything in terms of on ice. The players that didn't play last night are going to go over to Chelsea Pier here and skate. We have a rehab program that we run, a recovery program that we run. So everybody's down. Everybody has to get up and eat breakfast. Then we do a medical portion where they all run through kind of the trainers to make sure that their body's working right. Then the team performance guys take them to a kind of a recovery deal. The coaches will just stay here and grind video. We'll do one video meeting today. We flip that around, whether it's even strength if we think we need to, or if it's special teams. And then they have a lounge here, so most of the guys will come back and watch the game here tonight, but pouring rain out there right now. It's a good reason to stay inside.
Paul, I've never covered one of your training camps, but Kachuk mentioned two nights ago when we were here for the intros that it was the first 5 days are brutal, and he brought it up again last night, saying that it gets you uncomfortable. The feeling of discomfort for the players. Is that the intention of what you do, and what do you do those first 5 days?
No, it's interesting. So the first 5 days are to make everybody equal. And then we go in and play a doubleheader and everybody plays. So it's kind of a way to level out your room. Whether you're a kid that just got drafted or you're Barkov, you're all going to go through the exact same things at the camp in the first 5 days. I'm sure somewhere there's camps that are tougher or different. Ours aren't. Like, it's not like we skate them for an hour. Our drills are hard, they're heavy, and they are all of the hard components of our systems is what we cover in the first 5 days. So with very little talk about offense, almost none. How do we defend? How hard do we defend? And we can measure it, you know, and what's the truth? Probably last year, 2 years ago, new coach, right? And this is going to be hard. It has to be. They almost needed that, right? Because they were kind of distraught about the way the playoffs had finished, and they needed it's almost cathartic a bit. So we worked them really, really hard. And they got through it. They survived it. And then we talked about that kind of all year, how hard that was, and that we survived it, and it was a kind of a sign of strength. This year, our training camp was exactly the same as last year's. The exact same drills to the minute. And I know exactly the length of the skates and how hard they skated. So we can kind of measure everything with those chips they have on these guys up and down. And they worked harder. So they put more effort they pushed themselves harder this year than last year, and I wasn't screaming at them to do it. And that's when you're kind of like on the bench going, okay, these guys they were a focus group right from the start. The first one, they're kind of looking at you with big guys going, when's this going to end? Like, again? And this one, they kind of go, okay, we call them pucks, but for our skates at the end, we're doing 10 pucks. Okay, we know it's going to suck. And then by the time they get to that 6th or 7th puck, they start cheering for each other, and it kind of binds them.
Last question, second row.
Coach, you talked yesterday about losing game 1 last round and having to kind of right the ship against Boston. Obviously, this round you have a solid start, so how do you build upon that?
Well, that's what we're talking about today, for sure, right? What was the difference? We won game 1 against Tampa, and then I thought Tampa played its best game the next game. And then we very probably played our best game in game 2. So we will assume then that the loser of game 1 plays their best game in game 2, and we're going to have to be that good tomorrow. Because both teams are still fresh, right? We had, before last night, we'd played one game in about 7 days, right? It's kind of the same with the Rangers. They're fresh. So one game doesn't hurt anybody. They're going to be going tomorrow, and they'll be fast. And then we won't necessarily look at it as a game. There's going to be a block of time for all 4 teams left where they own the game. So we had a stretch of time where the Rangers didn't get a shot, but there was also a stretch of time they were on us pretty good. 3rd shift out in the 1st period after the penalty kill in the 3rd. Manage those blocks. Just don't try to play 60 minutes in one, and manage the blocks of time where the other team's rolling.